Hello friends, another video from Drywall Repairman. On this channel we have mostly videos of drywall repairs such as patching, stress cracks, texture matching, small jobs, easy jobs, do-it-yourself type jobs. We are on the job working, so as I'm working I'm trying to make simple videos to show you guys how to do watch and learn type videos. So let's go ahead and jump into the video here and see what's involved. Also, at the end of the video, please subscribe, like, and comment, and jump in the other playlists and watch my other videos. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Hey everybody, here's another patch job in the garage. These are condos, so this patch you can see on here, it has like metal brackets on it. They put these metal brackets on the trusses. I don't know if it's some kind of structural thing, but we're gonna go ahead and pull the screws out of these brackets, but I'm also gonna add some wood backing here, maybe wood backing here. We got a tape seam there that we're gonna work on, an angle seam. This is a garage, so we're going to have to use 5/8 sheetrock. We always use 5/8 sheetrock to match 5/8 sheetrock's fire code. It's like a fire resistant sheetrock. It's not resistant to fire, it just slows down the fire. So if something happened, like a car caught on fire, it wouldn't go into the main building right away. So let's go ahead and get this patched in. We're going to get this all cleaned up, pull out the old screws, add some wood backing, sheetrock it with a piece of new 5/8 sheetrock. We're going to clean up this seam here that's blistered out, dig that out, the angle. Then we're going to turn around, tape all this. Then we're going to first coat it with a hot mud. I'm going to use a 5-minute quick setting mud. That way it sets up in 5 minutes. First coat, then I'm going to turn around, slick it out. Then we're going to do second coat with hot mud, and then I'm going to finish it with the texture. Here, I don't know if you can see up the lighting here, it's just a skip trowel texture. But we have a lot of videos like this, patching jobs. So this is just another patch job we're doing. 2x2 patch in a ceiling from water damage, either from plumbing or a leaking roof. Very common repair access area like this. So let's go over the basics you'll need for this. Of course, you're going to need a screw gun. Always need a razor blade, clean razor, new razor, cut your new sheetrock, tape measure, wood backing, you need some type of backing. 2x4s work good if you have 2x4s, wood sheeting, 1x3s, whatever you have, you need wood backing to get some pieces of wood in there. Fiberglass mesh tape, you need a fresh water bucket, texture, hot mud, and a piece of 5/8 sheetrock. This is the basics. So a little small job like this can get expensive if you don't have the basics. If you had to go buy fiberglass, you had to go buy wood, you had to go buy sheetrock, hot mud, texture, just the basics can get expensive. So sometimes a small job like this you might want to do yourself, but you got to also keep in consideration all the stuff you need to buy. Screws. You can't just buy 5 screws. You're going to have to buy a whole box of screws. So basic stuff you need. Sheetrock, screws, fiberglass tape, mud, texture, screws, basic stuff. So now we got the basics taken down. Let's go ahead and use our screw gun. We're going to pull those screws out. Get those screws out and take our wood backing, add wood backing. Once we get the wood backing secure, everything has screws in it and secure, we're going to take our measurements, tape measure, and then we're going to cut our piece of sheetrock. So let's get to work, people. You're wasting too much time. Like I said, pull the old screws out. Old screws out, old screws out. This is nice and square, so at least they did that for us. If this wasn't square, you'd have to cut it out nice and square. But it looks like the plumber actually did a clean job here cutting it out. This is the old tape seam. We're going to redo that paper seam. See, it just comes right out because it's paper. Original's paper. Get that old stuff out of there. I have my 6-inch always in my back pocket. So I'm just going to dig out the old stuff while I'm up here. Clean it up. Getting it ready for new sheetrock. What's always a good thing, you can pencil off your studs, but I just easy marking for your studs, just put a screw on the outside edge. You also want to tighten up the outside edge because it's loose. Look how loose this is. That's why we always want to put screws on the outside edge. You have 1, 2. This is 5/8 sheetrock, so you're going to have to use at least 1 inch and 5/8 or a 2-inch screw to get through the 5/8 plus through the stud. There you go. The smaller screws, 1 1/4 inch, are meant for 1/2 inch sheetrock. So you want to make sure you use big enough screws. You want to be able to go through the sheetrock and the stud, nice and strong. There you go. Stuff like this you can do on your own, get it all cleaned up. Maybe you're not comfortable doing the mudding and the texturing, but just getting it simple, prepared, scraped up, cleaned up. And then maybe when you go get a bid from a drywaller, the price might be a little lower since you did a little bit of prep work. Plus it also shows that the guy that comes and does the work say, hey, this guy knows to put screws in, you know, I'm going to do a good job for this guy since he understands what needs to be done here. Scrape all loose stuff, also scrape out past your area any loose stuff because we're going to end up mudding this whole area. I'm going to get the backing in. Like I said, we're going to put a piece of backing here or here just to tighten it up. We have something to put screws in here, so this is good here. But you need to at least put something on this edge. Is most important. If you got extra, you can put one here, one here. But the most important is this edge. You can't just have screws in here, then the edge where the two meet, the old and new meet, are loose. So you don't want a loose area there. So always put backing there. If you got enough room, you could get a 2x4 in there. Nice 2x4 like that. Or you can go like that, no big deal. It's just something to get screws into so your patch is nice and tight. Areas when you don't have that much room to work with, you might want to use a 1x2 or 1x4, a smaller piece of wood to get in there. It's real tight. Like around here, insulation, it's real tight, so I'm going to use my little piece to get in there. There's a little more room in here. A good go-to is 1x2s. If you can get your hand on a bunch of 1x2s, go ahead and use those. But I'm going to go ahead and use that. I'm just using up basically scrap wood that I have on hand to use it up. Same thing, we're going through 5/8 sheetrock, so use longer screws. You want to always get screws in your backing, so hold your backing in place until you get a screw set. One on each side, that's nice and strong. 2x4s are always a go-to if you got them, but 1x2s, 1x4s work also the same. This one I'm going to take the stud over here a little bit because I want to get a screw on this side of the sheetrock, and I want to get a side on this side. Now I can screw my new piece of my patch, my new sheetrock, and put screws in there, there. I get a bunch of areas to put screws in, so it's a nice and strong patch. We don't want a loose patch, we want a strong, tight patch. Same thing, get a couple screws in here. I always do at least 2 screws in my backing. Nice and tight. This one's pretty tight here. There's a stud there, so I'm going to try to get another one in here if I can. Two screws. The patch to me looks like a 2x2, but let's measure it. We want to make sure it's a 2x2. If you have several patches, you want to write down the measurements of all your patches. No, it's under 2x2, so you would think you can go inside, but you want to just go with the wall. So I would just say 21, check both sides, 21 1/4 by 20 by 20 1/4. So I want to go with the bigger measurements, 20 1/4 and 21 1/4. We're going to have to cut it down so it's kind of off. You can also spend the time to make it perfectly square, but it's easier to just cut the patch back. So let's go ahead and measure that, get our piece cut out. 20 1/4 by 21 1/4. Let's get our sheetrock cut out. If you're not familiar with what type of sheetrock you actually need, hey, I don't know if I need 5/8 or if I need 1/2 inch. We'll just measure it. Measure it. You can see the depth right there. It's over 1/2 inch. So if you know if it's over 1/2 inch, it's going to be 5/8. It's over 1/2 inch, so it's going to be 5/8 sheetrock. So that's a pretty easy measurement. You just measure the thickness of the sheetrock. 5/8. 5/8. It's over 1/2 inch, as you can tell. 5/8. I would say it's more like 3/4, but we just say it's 5/8. Most garages need to have 5/8 per code, but most people know builders don't always do everything per code. I carry sheetrock on hand. I got purple board, 1/2 inch. I got a big piece of 5/8 here. I got littler pieces of 5/8, so I'm going to see if my smaller piece fits. If you have scraps like this, then you can use them up. More than likely, you might have to buy a whole sheet just to do. But this is not going to work because my biggest piece here, 19 inches. So I don't have any other bigger pieces of sheetrock. So I brought this whole. So I have 2 by 4 foot section I brought with me just in case, and I'm glad I did because the patch, this piece I have is not big enough. I could also piece it in. You can always piece it in, but let's go ahead and just take a piece off this new sheetrock. T-square will be your friend. If you don't have a T-square, you don't have to go out and buy one. You can also use a level or a piece of straight edge like a 2 by 4. If you use a straight edge, you would just mark it, say, well, I need 20 1/4, I said. So we'll just say 20 1/4. Then mark down here at below 20 1/4 by 21 1/4. Remember, 21 1/4. The beauty with the T-square is that this top part will sit nicely on here. But if you mark both sides like I did here, I marked it here and marked it here, you could take your straight edge on the pencil line and level it up. Act like this is a level or thing or a piece of wood, and just there's your pencil line. But if you have a T-square, it's nicer because it sits flush on the edge, and then you can run it across. But basically that gives us our cutout area that you need to cut out. When you're dealing with 5/8, cutting 5/8 with the razor blade, you want to make sure you have a new razor blade, because 5/8 is thick and heavy duty. It's heavy duty. So what I like to do is just my pencil line, I like to score it 1 time. Get it going and maybe score it 2 times. And you also want to make sure you go with the same line 3 times. It's easier to give it a couple scores. If you give it a couple scores, then it's going to really easily snap. Then once you get it scored, just bump it. Cut the backside brown paper side, the back side. Snap it back the other way. Now we got that cut. So now we got our horizontal cut. Now we can do this cut. Just showing you on the camera here, so you can just cut it this way. Half inch would be good with just scoring it once. You can snap it, but 5/8 is heavy duty, thicker stuff. So I give it 2, 3 good scores, and then it can snap. You have to put a little energy into it. Once you snap it, then you can cut the back side of the brown paper side. Same thing here, just snap it off. If your edges are rough, then you can clean them up with the razor blade and router. But now I got a nice piece of sheetrock, brand new piece of sheetrock to install up there. So let's go ahead and get our sheetrock installed. As you can see, we got the tape started there and we got the sheetrock ready to go. So let's go ahead and get that sheetrock piece up there. When you hang patches, always keep your razor blade with you, because even the best sheetrocker are going to have to cut it back. So if we cut it good, it's going to sit nicely. But I can already tell you, I got to cut it back right here. It's pretty good. There's a little gap there, a little gap there. No big deal. We're going to pre-fill it. Hold up your sheet. Don't use your head. I see a lot of guys, they use their head to hold it up so they free their hands. Guys over the years that hang a lot of sheetrock, you're pushing down on your neck and your vertebrae. You're compressing your vertebrae. It's bad news. Anyone that has neck problems, back problems, they know about compressed vertebrae. You don't want to do that. Remember how I put the stud right there? The 2x4? Look at that. Now, I usually get one screw on one side and a screw on the other side so it'll hold in place. Now it's held in place, my hands are free, so now you can go to town and start setting your screws. Plenty of screws, plenty of screws. Remember those trusses that ran this way, those metal ones? Get some screws in those. Both sides. Screw layout. I like to do every 3-4 inches and do a symmetrical, clean layout. Every 3-4 inches, no problem. There's that stud, so that's nice. It's a nice screw layout, nice and tight. You don't want loose patches. My wood backing here on the sides, that's extra credit. I didn't have to do that, but now it's nice and strong right there, really strong. That piece of wood I put right here, nice and strong. Strong intersection. Strong, strong, strong. Piece of wood here. So I was able to get screws on this side, basically screws on all sides. That's a perfect, ideal patch. My metal stud going this way. Every 3 or 4 inches and you're good to go. Nice screw layout, nice and clean. I checked my angle. Angle's not loose, but I'm going to go ahead and put a screw in it, see if I can get one in it anyways. A couple of screws in your angle on the wall side. That's if it's loose. So I didn't need my razor blade. I didn't have to cut it back. Next step, scrape it. You got to use your 6-inch knife. Scrape all that loose stuff. Make sure everything's scraped out of there. Little paper goobers, any high spots, anything out of it. Get it scraped out. It's going to get in your way when you go to mud. Any loose tape, any goobers. I also like to scrape out past area. So if I get any, I got to mud that so I don't want anything. Fiberglass mesh tape. I always use fiberglass mesh tape. I don't care what anybody says. Fiberglass is garbage. I can't fiberglass angles. They are lying to you. I use fiberglass every day. I'm a licensed drywaller. I never have any callbacks. No problems. If you know how to use this stuff correctly, it's good. Right now I will stick to this. But I like to use my spray glue. If you watch plenty of videos, spray glue, especially here where it's damage, I just a little bit of spray glue in the angle real quick. I'm not putting a ton of spray glue. This is just giving it extra tacky. You don't need this spray glue, it's just extra. If you got it, use it. I love it. It's the best go-to. Especially it's cooler, so the stickiness on this tape is not as sticky. When hotter weather, it's really sticky because the glues are hotter. But then you just go ahead and fiberglass mesh tape. That old seam that I dug out, remember that old seam? Since I took out the old tape, it's going to be channeled. Fiberglass anything. If you have a big gap, you can do 2 layers of fiberglass, it won't hurt. But my next step after this, I'm going to mix some mud and I'm going to fill it in, push it inside the gap here in grooves. Angle tape. A lot of guys say use paper tape. Hey, if I use paper tape on this, it's going to bulge out. If you know how to use fiberglass mesh tape, this stuff does wonders. What I'm doing is I'm going to put it in the angle like this. Basically 90-degree it. I'm going to take my 6-inch knife and run it on my wall side and angle side so I create a nice square edge. If there's a big gap in the angle, you could double layer it. You could do flat tape on the angle wall side or just do an angle. But you can angle, you can run fiberglass through angles. Makes a strong angle. Most people caulk the angles, but I don't ever caulk the angles only. You have to do at least a paper tape or fiberglass tape. This is a repair work, so I'm going to do fiberglass mesh tape. It's stronger than you think. It's a lot durable than paper tape. Once you get it all taped up, make sure your tape's pushed down with that spray glue. It really bonds and holds. Also, this tape seam, I gotta dig it out another foot, so I gotta move the ladder. This is a good time to take a look at anything else that needs to be done while you're mudding. Any nail holes, any other tape lines, any other repairs, get it all ready. Look at this. Yeah, this paper tape comes right out, so you just dig it out. You don't want to put tape over tape. You want to try to dig out the old stuff if possible. Dig it out. If it's loose, you need to put screws in it, but it's pretty tight. So fiberglass your area. Once you get everything sheetrock, taped, fiberglass is ready to go, then you're ready to mud. First coat. If you haven't done mudding before, always use a joint compound. Just first coat it, let it dry overnight, and then second coat the next day. Patched in, and we ended up fixing a 5-foot-long seam. I'm going to have to tell the homeowner this is going to be extra for fixing that seam. That wasn't part of the job. It had to be done. We couldn't just patch that in. We had to fix that seam also because it was a cracked water damage seam that went off. So we had to peel that off. So once I'm done with all my hanging stuff, always put your hanging tools away. If you don't need them anymore, get them out of your way. As for me, I use a bucket method. I also have a tool belt, but I pull out the tool belt when I'm really getting serious with the big project, hanging more than a couple of sheets of drywall, then I'll pull out the tool belt. But for these patch jobs, I keep everything I need, my basic tools, and a bucket. So grab bucket, I call it. Kick bucket, grab bucket. Now I'll need my coating tools. We use a pan and knife. I always use my go-to knives, 12-inch knife and a 6-inch knife. This is my bad 6-inch knife. This is my good 6-inch knife. So I always have one nice 6-inch knife I use for texturing and good mud coating, and I have a bad 6-inch knife for digging out old drywall and stuff like that. So this is my joint compound, and this one will be my That's my I keep my 5-minute mud in a bucket. How do I know which bucket it is? Well, I only use 5-minute muds for these repairs. I don't carry around 5-minute, I don't carry around 20, 40, 90, all those different ones. I just have for repair work 5-minute mud because it's a good stuff. It's awesome. You'll see in my videos the type of product they use. Depending on your region, you might have one or the other. You only use hot muds if you know what you're doing. These set up like a cement. You're going to need water, a water bucket, and a sponge. I already have this ready to go from the last job. So let's go ahead and mix up some mud. I'm going to just mix up a pan, what I need in my pan. 1 pan of hot mud, and then we're going to go ahead and get this coated. Hot mud, I got a big pan here. I use an 18-inch pan. Most pans that you're going to get in the store are going to be 12 or 14-inch pans. So depending on how much mud you need, this one I'm going to need basically a full pan of mud, but I only do 3/4 of a pan of powder, and then you want to use fresh water. Dump it in, good full sponge load of water in, then we're going to mix it, toss and turn with a 6-inch knife. Everybody has their own techniques on YouTube, how to mix hot muds. Some regions, they don't use pan and knives, they use a hock and trowel. But over here in the West Coast, we're West Coast riders, we use pans and knives. I'm sorry, hock and trowels. We'll let the hock and trowel guys do stucco or plaster. Drywallers out here, we use pans and knives. It's easier to mix in. You're just tossing and turning, mixing it by hand. You don't have to mix a whole bucket load. You just need 1 pan at a time, because that's all you're going to put on. There's 2 guys here doing a bunch of patches. Maybe I'll mix a half a bucket or something, 20-minute. Mix it up, get all your corners of your pan, get all that dry powder in there. Now it's mixed up, real heavy mixed up mud. Let's go ahead and get it coated. I'm going to use my 12-inch knife to get it coated. Do a nice first coat. Alright, with the seam that I dug out, I'm just going to fill that in. Basically, we channeled it since we got rid of the old tape. Now we got a channel, so now it's really easy to mud. If you're working with hot muds, you're going to have to work quick. You want to be able to get the mud on and turn around and clean up your tools before the mud sets up. Move your ladder to the next position. Same thing here, fill it in, fill it in. That way the joint's out of the way. Remember how I said I want to press mud inside this gap? Go ahead and just put mud on it, on your tape seam. Now follow through and push up hard. You're pushing that mud inside the grooves and the crevices. And the grooves and the crevices. Alright. Now we can turn around and coat it heavy. That's why I like to keep lids on my buckets. You'll get water droplets in there and get goobers in your bucket. That's alright. Your angle. Follow the wall side and then follow the ceiling side. Creating a nice 90-degree angle. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a first coat. Your edges, feather your edges, your patch, feather your edges. You want to try to use up all the mud in your pan. Get it on there before you trowel it down. Trowel it down, trowel it down. See how I'm moving my knife over to the next section? You're going to have lap marks. This quick set mud, so I still got extra mud in here, so I'm going to take it out further over here to fade it in. So that's a good first coat. Let it dry. Clean up your tools. Next step, clean up your tools. Scrape your tools. Clean your tools right when you're done using it. This is already starting to even set up, starting to get hard. You could even dump it in a pile. Since it's hot mud, it's going to dry one hard rock. So I just sometimes dump it in an area that won't get in my way. You definitely don't want to dump it where you're stepping, because you don't want to step in it and get it on your shoe. But get your pan cleaned up. You can hook up a hose and have a washout area with the hose. If not, just use your bucket and sponge. The lid, I don't have a lid on there. See how water droplet just fell on my hot mud? That'll create a clump later, because now that droplet's going to harden up in 5 minutes. But clean your tools, take your time. You just don't want this hot mud setting up on your tools, because if it sets up on your tools, it's not fun to get off. You're going to have to sand it, grind it, get it off, because it's going to set up like a cement. These 1 or 2 patch jobs, it's perfect to use a 5-minute mud. You get a mud on, it gives you plenty of time to clean up. Get the pan tools cleaned up. Next step, everybody knows the next step with hot muds, we're going to have to slick it out. You're going to need a clean 6-inch knife and a damp, clean sponge. We're going to wet the area, damp it up, and then we're going to slick it out. But let's go ahead and let this set up. It's a 5-minute mud, so it is going to take a few minutes to set up. So in the meantime, I can start cleaning up your work area, get everything cleaned up. Don't just sit around waiting for the mud to dry. Do your next steps so you can hurry up and finish this job and get on with your life. All right, I think it's starting to set up. It's been a few minutes, so let's go ahead and check it. Just put your hand in it. It's damp, but it's touchable, so it's workable. So you're going to have to slick it out now. Let's go ahead and slick out this hot mud. Slicking out. I have a video on my playlist. Most of my videos show me where to go hot mud. Slick it out with that damp sponge and working the angle first. You want to catch this mud as it's setting up, not after it sets up. Hit your edges. You want to feather this edge, get rid of that mud edge. That's the most important thing in patches, is feathering that edge so you don't see a sharp line. I'm just going over it. Your clean 6-inch knife. Now we're just going through. I'm pushing down kind of hard. That seam, it's pushing that mud in the seam, and it's also taking the extra mud off. Taking the extra mud off. If you do enough of this slicking out, your first coat slick out turns into a second coat. See that extra mud in there? I'm following it through, and it's almost turning into like a second coat over everything else I did. Hot muds are more advanced type material using. I use it like this because I want to finish these jobs in one trip, get them textured in one trip. If you're working on a project in your own home and you're not that comfortable with mudding, then use a joint compound. It's starting to set up. That's why you want to work it before it sets up too much, because then it's not easy to work with. This stuff's setting up strong. It's the best stuff on the market. Nothing will crack after you use hot muds. Follow through your angle, your edge. Anything that doesn't look right, just go over it. Your tape seam that we did. I'm going the opposite direction. Move my ladder and get the rest of this tape seam. It's about a 5-foot long tape seam. You're supposed to get rid of that edge. Get rid of that edge. this slicked out. This is a good first coat. It's almost like a second coat here. I can turn around and texture this, but I'm going to follow through with a tight coat. Either hot mud, I might even do a joint compound. Since I'm going to texture it with the red line joint compound, I can do a tight coat of joint compound for a second coat. That's because my first coat's good. I could texture it as is because I put the mud on just right and I slicked it out just in time. There's extra mud on there. That's what I was taking off, extra mud. Sometimes you don't just keep putting mud on, caking it on, and make a heavy hump. You don't want to see the patch. You're just filling in the deep areas. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to do a tight skim coat. I'm just going to make some hot mud, a tight skim coat of 5-minute mud again. And then we're going to let that 5 minutes set up, and then we're going to go ahead and do a skip trowel texture. So let's go ahead and mix a little bit of 5-minute in our pan. Do a second coat. I won't need as much because all the fill work is done. So quarter of a pan, if that, of mud. Add our water, mix it in. It's not going to be as thick as first coat, so you want to add a tad bit more water just to thin it down. We don't want soupy mud. We don't want mud dripping off the ceiling, but we're going to do a skim coat. If your patch is really deep, you're going to have to do a nice fill second coat. My patch is pretty nice, so I'm just going to skim coat it. This is just going to fill in any imperfections, waves, gouges. I might even skim coat it the opposite direction. But the mud's pretty thin, that way I can work with it. Nice and creamy mix up. You want it cream. You won't no clumps in your mud. So let's go ahead and do a tight second coat on this with some 5-minute. Alright, tight skim coat. You can go the opposite direction. Last go around I went this way. I'm going to put the mud on this way, but I'm going to trowel it down the opposite way. You don't have to do this, but what that's going to do is fill in any chatters, waves. Basically, a second coat's just a finished coat to go over anything. It just gets rid of any imperfections, all it is. Feather your edges. Feather your edges, go past your original first coat. Since I went that way, I'm going to go this way now. Go that way. Pulling scratches because it's a hot mud and there's boogers in my water. That's good. Take your leftover mud and hit your angle. They say you can't use fiberglass in angles. Well, I just did. And I guarantee you this is a stronger angle than any paper tape angle. Of course, new construction, you use paper. Everything looks good. Double check it. Now I just got to do my seam. Tight skim coat right over it. Move your ladder. Finish it off. Once it's coated, we're going to let this coat set up, and then we're going to go through and touch it up, slick it out, and then we're going to be ready for texture. Go past your first coat, make sure everything looks good, double check it. Looks good. Let's let it set up. Clean your tools. Scrape all the mud out of your pan. It's starting to already set up. Scrape your edges of your pan, whatever you need to do. Get it all cleaned up. Don't let this mud dry in your pan. Your knives, if mud gets caked on there, just use your 6 to scrape your coating knives. Vice versa, use your coating knives to scrape your 6. Get that mud off there. You got all the bulk mud off there, go ahead and wipe everything down. Nice clean 6-inch knife. Keep these knives clean. These knives, if they stay clean, will last a long time. The only time you replace knives if they get bent or if they break from rusting out. A nice clean knife will last a long time. Same with your pans. I don't know how long I've had this pan. It's an 18-inch pan. I can't even find an 18-inch pan, and if I do, you have to pay like $40 or $50 for such a big pan now. So you just keep these pans clean, they'll last forever. You accidentally drop it, they can handle a tumble, but the only thing that's going to damage it if they get bent from getting stepped on or really damaged from falling. As long as you keep them clean, there's over the years mud getting caked in there, but that's good. You can soak it. I can even spray WD-40 inside this, and the oil and stuff will loosen up all that caked in mud that's in the corners. Hot mud, I'm done with hot mud, so go ahead and put that away. My next material I'm going to need is a joint compound. This is a joint compound I had from the other job, so this is ready to go. So I'm just basically going to scoop what I need in my pan so it's ready to go. I don't need much for this patch. Half a pan, if that. The good thing with joint compounds, whatever I don't use, I can put back in my bucket and use it another day and put a little bit of water and then put the lid on my bucket. But my pan's ready to go with texture. I'm just going to put that to the side. Our next step is just to get a sponge and let that set up and slick it out. So let's go ahead and slick it out. It should be setting up right now. Alright, it should be setting up. You can always check it. Yeah, it's set up. Same thing like the first coat. Get rid of that edge. Most important, get rid of that edge. It fades it in. Maybe you're not too comfortable in doing the texture matching, but you can do up to this process and maybe just hire someone to texture. Or just leave it smooth, at least it's sealed up. Nice feathered out edge, so the texture will blend in nicely. It'll have a sharp mud edge there. You don't want to see that sharp mud edge when you go to paint. Move over your ladder to the next work spot. Same thing here. Edge, edge, edge. Get your angle. Get your angle. Get rid of that edge, edge. Same thing with the 6, just follow through. You can also go the opposite direction of your coat. That's just filling it in. I'm taking off the extra mud, as you can see. Sometimes more mud isn't good. That's the problem. Most people, they put too much mud on. You don't want a big 2x2 hump on your ceiling because you think you just put a big glob of mud on. Anyone could glob mud on a patch. It's putting the mud where it's needed. Kind of like I'm fixing a dent on a car. I don't just smear Bondo all over the fender. I put the Bondo inside the dent to fill in the dent. And I don't put the whole can of Bondo on there. I just put what's needed to fill in the area only. And if it needs more, then I'll do another tight coat. Extra mud taken off. It's pretty much set up now. So now I'm going to go get my pan of texture and we're going to do a skip trowel. Skip trowel with the joint compound. So let's go ahead and get this textured out. Most textures are done with joint compounds. This is a skip trowel, so it's done by hand with the knife. I like to use a nice straight 6-inch. A lot of guys like to use bigger knives, but that's good and dandy if you're doing big jobs like 1, 2, 10, 20, 100 sheet jobs. But for these patch jobs, just use a 6-inch knife. We're just skipping the angle first, skipping the angle on the wall side. If you don't know how to skip trowel, maybe you can practice on a piece of scrap sheetrock. A good secret too is if you go on the outside edge where the old texture is, they'll help give you a pattern. You also want to make sure you go the same direction as the existing. Nice and slow. Everybody asks me, how do I do skip trowel? Well, it's more of rinse and repeat thing. You learn by repetition. Any heavy spots like that, no problem. Just get rid of it. If you want a real heavy skip trowel, sometimes people do like a double skip, just double over it. But anything you do, you're going to have to trowel down, texture out the whole area. This is a simple patch. I guarantee you, if you own a house or a condo, you're gonna have to do a 2x2 patch at least once in your home ownership life. Especially plumbing access, they like to open up ceilings. So this is the most common patch. I have a ton of videos on my channel just doing patchwork like this because it's so common. On the outside edge, get rid of that lap mark. And I like to take it out to the outside edge to blend it in. Blend it in. Just gives it a nice transition from old to new. Any missed areas, just double check everything. Textures out there, I would say we have spray knockdowns, we have spray splatters, we have hand textures like this, skip trowels, Drywall, done by hand. We got brush textures, so many different textures. These skip trowels are common in these newer homes, houses that are less than 10, 20 years old, those common textures. Track house. Outside edge. Knock it down, knock it down. Knock it down. I just have my angle over here. Joint. If you haven't done it already, I would really like it if you subscribed, like this video, leave a comment. It really help me out. I'm trying to grow this channel. Feather it out past your work. Go opposite direction, helps feather it out, blends it in. Patch turned into a large area. Your mud, once you're done with the mud, double check your work. I like to look at both sides. Looks good.